Get Rich Education is brought to you by Valhalla Wealth and Ridge Lending Group.
You're listening to the show that has created more passive income for people than nearly any show in the world. This is the powerful Get Rich Education.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 165, with millions of listener downloads in 186 world nations from Bosnia to Belgium to Bermuda. Thanks for listening to us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, so many of you at Apple Podcasts, or maybe you're listening on the dedicated Get Rich Education phone apps. You can also listen right here at GetRichEducation.com. Welcome to the new listeners listening through your Spotify app. We're proud to be one of the first investing shows invited onto Spotify. Yes, unfortunately for Wall Street, I am back to help you build your wealth. And with a new show intro, more on that later, we're talking about time versus money and also about quitting your job today. I don't agree that time is money and money is time because time is clearly more valuable. You have the opportunity to get back lost money, but not lost time. When Tom Wheelwright made one of his earlier appearances here on the show, he echoed that same thing, saying that it's ridiculous to equate money to time for the same reason. Unlike money, time is your irreplaceable, irreplenishable resource. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Money often costs too much." I can't be sure, but I think he was referring to the fact that we often trade that time for money, often doing something soulless during that time. Consider that if you're 30 years old, you have 606 months left to live on an average life expectancy. If you're 60 years old, you've only got 241 months left to live. Does that make your time seem more valuable right there when you think about the fact that you are going to die? What if you've got a newborn child that you bring home from the hospital? You've got 260 weekends, not months, but 260 weekends from birth to kindergarten, and now you're caught up in carpools to their friends' houses and all those sorts of things. So every day of your life, you make dozens of time versus money decisions every day. Should you hire a lawn service to mow your lawn, or should you do it yourself? Should you bake brownies for the PTA meeting, or instead pick up some from the bakery? And so much of this is influenced by the friends that you choose to hang out with and your coworkers. That's why if you want to start coloring your hair and your friends just happen to color theirs at home, then you're probably going to do the same thing. And, here's an important thing to realize in the time versus money conundrum. Realize that doing it yourself might take an hour of your 24-hour day. But what people fail to realize is that's 1 out of your 3 discretionary hours in that day. And those discretionary hours, they're often the ones that make you, where you're defining yourself. So let's explore this. For a beach vacation, you might pay more for a direct flight to gain a couple extra hours getting sand between your toes. Okay, that decision right there, that is choosing time. And then on the other hand, you might choose to take a better paying job that requires late nights at the office. Well, that's choosing money. And yet many people do choose money over time again and again, even when your basic material well-being really doesn't even demand it. And partly, there's no doubt. You know why that is? There's no doubt that even well-off people, they fear future poverty and pain. But it's also because your time versus money trade-off, that actually rarely presents itself in really simple ways. Okay, say that you're offered a better paying job that requires you to commute longer. Okay, that right there, that is more money in return for less time. But see, then again, that extra cash that you get, that could lead to more or better time for you in the future in the form of a more secure retirement or nicer vacations. So then really, when you think about it that way, which choice prioritizes time and which one money? That might be hard for you to say, but I say that's prioritizing money over time, because then you're definitely selling today for a mere hope of a better tomorrow. There's a study by researchers Hal Hirschfield and others that surveyed more than 4,000 Americans to determine whether they valued time or money more and how happy they were. And the results were that a clear majority, 64%, preferred money. But you know what? Those who valued time, that set was found to be happier. And importantly, it wasn't only those people wealthy enough to not stress about money that preferred the time. Okay, so even at the same income level, those persons that valued time more were found to be happier. Those that were more likely to value time, they tended to be older people, married people, and parents. And that kind of makes sense because older people have less time left, while those with spouses and kids presumably either cherish time with them or they feel like the kids steal all of their time, or maybe both. So the crucial finding really is it's not having more time that makes you happier, but it's valuing time that makes you happier. And economists continue to argue about whether money buys happiness or not, but few people doubt that being well off is more pleasant than struggling to make ends meet. So that Hirschfield study, it kind of makes a different point. It implies that even if you're scraping by and thus forced to focus on money, that you're going to be happier deep down because you know it's that time that makes you more important. That's really the takeaway from that study. One common conundrum that people have when they have kids is this, well, now, should the wife work or should she stay home with the kids? Or sometimes it's the husband too. By staying home with the kids, you rationalize that nothing could be better for your kids' development. So you're going to stay home. I mean, who could argue with that? And if both parents work, then the couple might rationalize that they're doing that to provide for their kids' futures. But then during that time, they might feel guilty because now a daycare stranger might be the one to see that child's firsts, their first steps or their first words or whatever. Well, what does all this have to do with investing? Well, gosh, you read all these articles and you can read all this research on this, but any solution to this that they hint at is so dissatisfying to us because no one even mentions that when you have passive income, now you can have both time and money. So there really is a great answer for this time versus money conundrum, and it is passive income. Income that you don't have to work for solves this classic time versus money problem. And when it's income from real estate, income property, now there's something that's durable and proven, and it's not likely to dissolve away. Henry David Thoreau said that wealth is the ability to fully experience life. I quantify wealth, as you know, in terms of time. Wealth is defined as how long could your passive income sustain you at your current or desired lifestyle without you having to work. I'm having a friend come on the show today that's going to talk about his wealth as 7.7 years. That's how you measure wealth. He gets it. As you're building up your passive income, you might just want to enhance your lifestyle and keep your job. And you might or might not want so much passive income that you have the option to break away from a job that just doesn't fulfill you. But quitting your job introduces fear for some people. When it comes to quitting your job, the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, and I'm sure I messed up that name, but anyway, he contributed a quote which I think is so impactful. He said, "People have a hard time letting go of their suffering. Out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar." Just let that one land for a few seconds. So let me tell you about my own progression from a former employee. I used to be a road construction and airport construction inspector to quitting that day job and starting my daydream. And let's just see if you can sort of relate to this. So in my early years of working, making money really seemed to matter. And then as my passive monthly real estate income went up to $1,000 and $2,000 and $3,000, okay, a couple interesting things began to happen. Okay, when that passive income started coming in, I began to forget when employee payday even occurred. And that's something that I had previously looked forward to, and I even marked that day on my calendar. So at this stage, when I'm still an employee with maybe $3,000 of passive monthly rental income, I began to notice other things, and it came from comments from my coworkers. And at our day jobs, my coworkers and I were all paid roughly the same salary. I had returned from a great vacation to Hawaii's Big Island, seeing the volcanoes of flowing orange lava. Absolutely loved it. And I soon planned another trip to Maui. And a couple coworkers wondered how I had the money to keep going on these vacations, some of whom have never been to Hawaii at all, and they're older than me. And you begin to realize that a lot of people might only have $1,000 of monthly discretionary income left over after all their bills are paid. So with me having an extra $3,000 of real estate income, well, that might only increase my monthly income by 30%. But see, I've actually got 4 times the discretionary income of my coworkers now. So as my real estate income grew 5K, 10K, soon my paycheck barely seemed worth it for all the time that I was trading for it. And I think for a little while, I did try to rationalize keeping my job because there was a mild fear factor there. And it does feel good to contribute to others there in the workplace. But, even that didn't last for very long at all. And you know why? The difference maker was that I realized that at work, I was a replaceable piece. Okay, if I quit, someone else could come in and soon do the same tasks that I was doing. I was feeling like a replaceable cog and not really needing the money so bad anymore. That's what caused me to quit. And doing Get Rich Education provided me with a feeling of significance in the world, and I don't feel replaceable. There were other things that coworkers popularly say that just rubbed me the wrong way and made me feel like I was in the wrong place. And I think I might have mentioned this one on the air before, but it's worth mentioning again. It's that joke that, hey, you'll spend more time with your coworkers than you do with your own family. That right there is not funny. That never made me laugh. That almost demeans our very humanness. And that's what you're supposed to do? I mean, that's ridiculous. That right there, that is truly living life by society's default and not by your design. No matter how big your paycheck is from your job, working overtime or not, whatever, you're not buying back yesterday. Yesterday is gone. And that is true for all 7.5 billion humans on Earth. So that's kind of the sort of mindset that I experienced leading up to quitting my job years ago. Or I guess a more genteel way of saying it is that I traded my active income for passive income. And when coworkers asked why I was leaving, my short answer was simply because it just takes so much time. There was nothing wrong with my coworkers. They were great people. Actually, it's too bad that I didn't work with any jerks because it would have made it easier for me to quit my job. But it was time for me to migrate to a better and higher use, serving others and then finding a way to serve them through Get Rich Education. One telling thing that a coworker, Linda, said to me on my last day of work, she said, well, I guess now that you're quitting your job, you'll have time to shovel snow and mow the lawn, because she knows that those are 2 things that I largely outsource. And my answer to that was, no, I'm actually less likely to do those things now because I left my job to migrate to a better and higher use. By leaving my job, what I'm basically saying is that my time is worth more than the $40-some an hour that I was making at the time. That's why by quitting my job, I would actually be less likely to fill my time with, whacking weeds or edging sidewalks or something. So that's part of the mindset of quitting your job. And if you're close to quitting your job, be sure to get your real estate loans in place, properties closed, and maybe even make your first income property mortgage payment before you pull the trigger. You may or may not have to do that last one. Ask your mortgage loan officer about that. But rather than selling your time like you did at your job, now you can get yourself into a position where you're buying others' time. When you own more income property, you're basically buying your tenants' time, and 30% of their monthly income goes toward their housing payment, a portion of which trickles to you. Maybe you want to leave your day job for what might still be work, but it's work that you choose. If you're a woodworker and you sell your work, now you don't have that pressure to have to make your living by selling the wood pieces, and you can feel like you're doing something irreplaceable. No one does the art like you. Maybe income property has just totally made you fall in love with real estate and you want to be a real estate agent or something. but you know that their income is slow to start and that they receive irregular income. Well, now your passive income gives you the latitude to do that. So when you quit your job, you can spend more time now in just thought and peaceful contemplation without being rushed. And, I just can't tell you how important time in thought is. People are so pressed for time in life that they listen to a podcast episode at 1.5 or 2x speed. And then when that episode is done, they go right to the next one. I don't do that. I listen at 1x speed, and then I might pause 5 or 10 minutes before I listen to another episode. This gives me the time to be in thought and think, now, what did I learn from that episode? What was impactful? What is there from that material that I can apply to my life or help others with? So that time in thought is really critical. That's what leads to taking the right action. We're here in the information age. We don't need to keep hurriedly cramming in more information. So find the right information, then think about it, then apply it. That thought process is so important. That becomes that right catalyst for you. Both direction and speed are important in your life, but direction is more important than speed because most people are going nowhere fast. We don't have to rush through life. Well, hey, today's guest, Get Rich Education's Marcus Whelan, was last on the show with us way back in episode 95 when he was here in Anchorage with his wife. Gosh, you'd think I'd have my own people here on the show more often. He's an Australian citizen, which is where he joins us from today. Now, he's used passive income from real estate to pivot into his own business as an Amazon marketer. We're going to talk with him about time versus money. Right after this, you're listening to Get Rich Education. MC Laubscher is the host of the top-rated business and investing podcast, Cash Flow Ninja, and also the president and chief wealth strategist of Valhalla Wealth. They help busy people build wealth outside of Wall Street by strategically combining their clients' cash flow statements with the financial vehicle of the wealthy, according to the infinite banking concept. If you are interested to learn how to perpetually multiply your wealth, you can access an exclusive webinar at yourownbankingsystem.com. Cash flow real estate investors, if you're looking for a mortgage loan with a company that specializes in investment property loans, it's Ridge Lending Group. They provide income property loans in almost every U.S. state. Ridge has worked with tens of thousands of investors and homeowners all over the country. In fact, with ethics and transparency, they've helped more people realize their dreams through real estate investing than any other mortgage lender in the country. Get started at ridgelendinggroup.com.
This is Cashflow Diaries Jay Massey. Do the right thing, then do things right. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold.
Well, I'd like to welcome back on to Get Rich Education. It has been quite a while. Joining us from Brisbane, Australia, it's Get Rich Education's own business developer, Marcus Whelan.
Hey, Keith. It's good to be on here today.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. You're a longtime successful real estate investor. You're an entrepreneur, and you left what Robert Kiyosaki calls the E quadrant quite a while ago. You don't strictly trade your time for dollars. You don't work that employee mentality, but you were a longtime employee, so you know how it feels to be one, and you know how it feels to get that measure of financial freedom that really changes your life. So just tell us a little bit more about that transformation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Keith, I don't think I was ever cut to be an employee. It was great being there just to learn things and learn what it's like, to go through the process of going to university, doing business school. And then I joined Holden, which is part of General Motors. And it was good to get that experience, but I just couldn't wait to get out of there. And you just look at all the time that you waste and you think, in this job, I'm basically just hauling water buckets. I'd rather be out there building pipelines that are going to have that recurring, return over and over, forever.
Right.
And you notice that from being a business owner, that you're buying people's time. And I love to buy people's time. And that's what was happening to me. They were buying my time to put in assets for the business and so they could grow with them. So the value stayed with the company. I put the value in and then walked away. And now I like to be on the other side where every day, if possible, I'll buy as much time from people as I can. So I'm constantly building pipelines over hauling water buckets.
Right. So you've gotten out of that trading your time for dollars mentality, that selling your time, the very fabric of your life. You've gotten out of selling that for money. And let's just talk about how that feels some more as an employee. And you know what I like to say, Marcus, and I think of a lot of employees feel this way. If you're looking forward to the weekend, that right there, that says something really bad about what you're doing between Monday and Friday. If you're just exclusively looking forward to the weekend and then you're dreading the following Monday, I just think that says an awful lot about those activities that you're doing and what you think about them from Monday through Friday.
Yeah, doesn't it? That is spot on. Like for me, I cannot wait for Monday mornings. It's exciting. Like I struggle to switch off. So Sundays I switch off. I work half Saturdays sometimes. What I'm doing, I'm happy to do until I'm over 100. Like I'm in this thing now. I just love it so much. Whereas in the job, Monday to Friday, by the time you get to Friday, you are absolutely wrecked. You can't wait to get out of there. One big thing that killed me was commuting. I think commuting is the number one thing that keeps people poor. It's insane how much time people spend in the car. Like for me, I had a 1 hour commute.
Gosh.
You think about it, that's 260 hours in the car divided by a 38-hour work week. That's 6.8 weeks of the year I'm spending in the car. Can you believe I'm spending 6 weeks in the car a year? And, imagine I've talked to some friends recently. I was like, how's your commute? In Melbourne, they're getting longer and longer because the population's growing and the infrastructure is just not there. They've got commutes of 90 minutes each way. So I was like, okay, let's talk about this. 3 hours a day times 260 working days is 780 hours. Okay, let's divide that by the 38-hour work week. You are spending 20 work weeks in the car. Isn't that just unbelievable?
That is almost incomprehensible.
Isn't it? You could be spending 20 work weeks a year working on your business or your life or time with your family. People just don't get that lost time of commuting. Like I used to work a job where I was consulting and a 50-minute block was $100. But if I had to travel 30 minutes to see the client and come back, I had to factor that in. So basically I worked out a calculator and it gave me the distance and time it took to travel to the client and back. At the end of it, I had my per minute return. So I knew exactly what my time was spent, including the car commute as well. I don't think any people do that. Like a 3-hour commute a day, put that time into your annual salary and see how much it comes out to as an hourly rate. I think people would be pretty scared.
Yeah, that's right. They probably would. And for every minute of a one-way commute you have, of course, yes, you need to double that for your round trip. So that really is expensive. And maybe commuting is not as expensive as it used to be. I think you have a few more options now. A lot of people listen to this show while they're commuting, but you've still limited your options and you're still sedentary. And you know what? It's still something that you have to do. And you don't want to do only what you have to do. You want to have options. So a lot of people tolerate a long commute. And you know what it is, Marcus? I think a lot of job workers, a lot of employees, they really live life a little scared. They keep making that commute. They feel like they better return to work on Monday or they might lose their job. So people are actually designing a life with a commute built in around a feeling of them being scared. I mean, is that really the kind of life that you want to design for yourself where so much of your action is built upon being scared and built upon this fear? And a lot of people are willing to commute just to try to overcome and cope with that fear.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared. When you compare it to a business owner gets paid last, maybe, but an employee gets paid first, and that's because they're scared. So for a business owner, you've got to take a risk, you've got to spend all the money, you've got to hire the staff, and then after a couple of years, you might have a return, maybe, after spending all your money. But for an employee, they just want to get paid first and then commute, and then they get tied into that job, and then they pick up some mortgages and car loans and credit card debt. And then they're stuck. And then it's maybe even hard to change jobs or develop themselves.
You've been a friend of mine because we really kind of get along together on the same vibe in a few different ways. And, I tend to gravitate toward people that I think have a few things in common, Marcus. Number one is I tend to gravitate toward people where I feel like their future is bigger than their past. And I definitely feel that way when I'm around you. And by the way, that's not necessarily an ageist thing. There's a well-known entrepreneur. His name's Dan Sullivan. He's 72 or 73 years old. And when I listen to him, I feel in every way like his future is bigger than his past. But really the second thing, Marcus, that I think is a commonality between you and I and why we understand each other so well in a business sense and in every other way is that we really respect our time. Most people just don't respect their time nearly enough. And a lot of times it's because they are running scared and they are out to make that dollar. But really, it's that resource of time that's that irreplaceable, irreplenishable resource. I know you have something called prime time. Describe what you think of as prime time.
I find when people say go to their job that if they do want to start a business, they always try and do it after work. Like Robert always says, pay yourself first and all this. I think you should pay yourself your time first as well so you can get that return. It doesn't have to be money. It could be anything. But prime time, there's so much you can get done in the morning. Like for me, by midday, I'm basically finished. I'm up at 5, throw myself in a pool, have a healthy breakfast, check some emails, get started. I've started by 5:30. By 9 o'clock when people are getting to work, I'm having my first kind of break. I'm out on the lawn, just running around. And then by lunchtime, I'm finished. And I've piled through probably 6+ hours of work uninterrupted. There's no one else around. And then if I get by lunchtime, I can move into bonus time. And then if I decide to work after lunch, I can. If I decide to go out and go for a run, I can do that. But I think getting all those big items done early in the morning and getting a start and making sure your list is 80-20, so you're doing those high action, most valuable items first, you're just so far ahead if you get up early in the morning and you get started early.
Yeah, that's right. When you mentioned Robert, you're talking about Robert Kiyosaki. And yeah, when you're talking about the 80-20, you're talking about the Pareto Principle, where oftentimes 80% of your results come off 20% of your effort because you're expending that effort during what you call prime time, when your mental bandwidth is the strongest, when you're able to concentrate the most. And for you, that happens to be in the morning.
That's a good way to put it. So in the morning, I'm active, and in the afternoon, I'm passive. So in the afternoon, I'm studying, learning, getting ideas, going through books, talking to people, looking for nuggets, put them on the list, and then the next morning, I'm putting them into action when I'm just fresh and I'm at it. That's a great way to put it.
We are two guys that have substantial passive income from real estate because we know, at least on a passive basis, that's the vehicle that's made more ordinary people wealthy than anything else. But you and I also choose to pursue our active businesses. Mine is with reaching people through this Get Rich Education platform and be able to create great change in other people's lives and tell them how to create passive income. I don't have any children of my own, and see that feeling, that really enables me to get some sense that I have significance in the world and that I'm able to help others. And you sort of do a similar thing with your own online business. Although you have substantial passive income from real estate, you have an option to serve the world in the way that you want to serve it.
Yeah, well, that's what I guess that passive income, that first few $1,000s a month that just rolls in, that pays your expenses, and that allows you to have the time to then go and do what you want. That's why I said before, what I'm doing now is I'm happy to do forever, just starting businesses, launching new products and that kind of thing. We just launched a new product here in Australia. It's called Bondi ukuleles. So I kind of come from a musical family, and because I travel a lot, the ukulele slides right into my lifestyle. So it's something we've developed and pretty proud of. And yeah, the other ones, I'm into publishing. Like you, I like to educate and got a couple of books out there more towards language learning. But yeah, starting businesses and actually building things that kind of make people's lives better or give them enjoyment is the best thing ever.
Yeah, that value of significance in your life is just really the ultimate thing and what it comes down to. I mean, that's really how to give something beyond yourself. Yeah, so being a digital entrepreneur, really much like me, is you're able to control your time, and that is so significant. And, the chief complaint of people when they want to go ahead and try to financially better themselves, they do have this deep-seated fear in taking a risk, but oftentimes they say that they don't have enough time. So tell us about that.
A lot of people don't know where the time goes. You spend most of your life waiting for something. Time really compounds as well. So if you can get onto it early, like say you wanted to sleep 1 hour less a night, well, you think over a year, that's say 365 hours a year you gain, and over a decade, that works out to be 38 work weeks, 38-hour work weeks over a decade that you could pick up by just sleeping 1 hour less, where you could study, where you could start a business, where you could put your prime time towards something. You could, instead of maybe getting up at 7, you get up at 6 and you hit the day with your prime time of that 1 hour. In over a decade, you can imagine where you'd be. And I'm not saying you have to do it for a decade. I'm just saying over a decade, you pick up nearly a full year of working just from that 1 hour. So obviously by doing that early on, by year 2, 3, you might already be in a new business venture or whatever, just simply because you allocated and you paid yourself first with that prime time.
Yeah, and that compounding effect becomes really astounding once you've gone ahead and carved out enough time so that you can learn about building financial freedom through real estate. Now you've been able to quit your job in the E quadrant. Once you do that, you've got freedom and you really open up your time. And, I think a lot of people think about wealth, how they want a lot of money. And I think that we all genuinely do down the road. But really the thing that we want more is freedom. When you have achieved enough passive income in order to replace your job, now you have a measure of financial freedom. And then once you're free, you can kind of use that time as a lever to go ahead and get the wealth that you might ultimately want.
You're right. To get your time, to take time off, to reflect. I think when I moved towards this cash flow out of the E quadrant, I worked out I had 7.7 years of years worth of income saved up that I could live off and not have to work for 7 years and sustaining my current lifestyle. So I thought, let's just quit work. I don't have to work. And then after sort of a year to 18 months, I just got restless. But it's nice to not have that deadline where I'm just going to take 3 months off and not work. Yeah, I'm just not going to work ever if I don't want to. And then you can use that time to study and go into something you want to do.
Yeah. I might make the analogy of mowing the lawn. Okay, say your life's busy and you mow the lawn and that's just part of what you do every week, and you mow the lawn because you absolutely have to, or you think that you have to. You want to save the money, so you mow the lawn yourself. But when you've got financial freedom and you don't have to mow the lawn and you have the time and the latitude to do whatever you want to do, if you go out there and mow the lawn just because you want to mow the lawn rather than having to mow the lawn, that same activity can feel very different because you're doing something that you want to do rather than something that you have to do. That's the difference between an option and an obligation. So live a life of options. It's a lot better than living a life of obligations. Things feel better when you do something that you want to do rather than what you have to do, even if it's the exact same activity.
It's spot on. You always make these points so clear. It's so liberating to not have to do something, but you have the choice.
Well, Marcus, it was good to have you on to get your perspective on time. Thanks so much for coming back onto the show.
Yeah, it's good to be back on the show again.
Yeah, well, some nice takeaways today with Marcus. Survey after survey, people are happier when they have more free time than the people with little free time and lots of money. Well, hey, I hope that you're all right with that new show intro. I basically just wanted to cut things down. One thing I wanted to cut was the part about real estate investing creating millionaires and billionaires. And that is something that's totally accurate, but, I think it just gives the wrong idea because anymore, a millionaire isn't even wealthy. More than 1 in 20 Americans are millionaires. It's just not really a wealth marker at all today. I also wanted to completely remove my name from the introductory part. I think the former intro had my name in there twice, and I just want to de-emphasize that for a while. Like I say, you're not here for me, you're here for you. Again, people have a hard time letting go of their suffering. out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar. So you're going to stick with familiar suffering rather than give something else a try. Really? Whether that's trying to buy your first income property or more income property or quitting your job, Mark Twain said that 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones that you did do. I say that people spend all this time learning about how work works. They spend zero time learning about how money works, yet money is the main reason that they go to work. Well, Get Rich Education listeners are really getting out there and doing it. In the past few months, we've had listeners on the show here as guests that have built thousands in monthly income, many enough income to quit their job. We've got some others just starting out, expanding their means. I've heard from Erica in Roanoke, Virginia, that built $886 in monthly cash flow through the providers at GREturnkey.com. I'm not sure how many properties that is for your $886 of monthly cash flow there, Erica. Then there's Glenn from Temecula, California, that bought his first income property at GREturnkey.com, which he says is producing $210 of monthly cash flow for him. Glenn showed me his spreadsheet. It's got conservative calculations in there, like 8% for a vacancy rate and such. Well done. So everyday people are doing it. You know, I always like to leave you with an actionable resource at the end of the show. So whether you desire to quit your job or you just want more income and options in your life, connect with a provider at GREturnkey.com. Read a few market reports, and then connect with a provider and put some properties under contract. Really, I am just totally honored by the fact that you listen to me every week. We've got a lot of great shows coming up, including the dynamic Tom Wheelwright's return. Thanks to today's guest, Get Rich Education's own Marcus Whelan. I'm Keith Weinhold. Though you might quit your day job, don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.